Hello everyone, welcome to Texture Myth. In this session, we are going to talk about another very important topic related to Angular GET API, where we will see how we can organize the GET APIs in a service. So we all know that sometime we need there is a requirement to access the data for the API, right, from the API. But in that situation, usually whatever example we have covered so far, we utilize the component to fetch the data, right? But this is not the right approach. Okay, so today we will discuss the right approach. Like what we will do, we will create one service, and in that service we will fetch the API data. Basically we will store the information related to API URLs. Okay, and also I'll tell you the exact benefit of using that process, like why we are utilizing that process. Okay, so these all things we are going to discuss in this session, like how to organize GET API in service, what are the benefits of it, and the steps that we need to follow to get it. But before we proceed further with this session, I would like to recommend you to please go and check out the previously released session first, because they all are in proper sequence and sync. So if you follow it sequentially, then it would be much more easier for you to understand the ongoing topic. Because for time being, we are just mainly focusing on how to organize GET API in services. Okay, and for all the sessions you can also refer the Texture Myth digital course book, which is freely available in the description box for everyone. There you will find thousands of sessions available in both Hindi as well as English language. So without any language barrier, you can easily consume the content, and in case if you have any questions or query regarding that, you can simply reach out to me through comment section. I would be more than happy to answer all your queries there. Okay, alright, so let's get started and see how we have implemented this thing. So firstly I'll show you the output. So output is showing us two headings: Angular course by Texture Myth, organizing GET APIs in services. Okay, not service. Yes, in services. Then we have user list. One horizontal row is there. Then we have user list and the name and the email of the users. So basically what we are doing, we are fetching the data from the API and then populating it on the screen. But the process is different because here we are utilizing the services. Okay, so this is my API from where I'm fetching the data. So this is a public API. You can also make use of it. Okay, because it's freely available for the learning purpose. So from here you can learn the concepts. Now I'll show you like how I have prepared this program and what all things I have made in this here. Okay, so for that we will go step by step. So let me close these things and I'll show you all the files separately. So first and very important and mandatory step is to configure the app file. So you need to go this app.config.ts file. Here you need to register this provide HTTP client. Okay, provide HTTP client. So once this thing is added here, that means now you are enabled to use API in your application, because these are the mandatory line. If you are not using these line and if you just simply skip this portion, then it won't allow you to make any API call through your application. So this is very important. Okay, and in every example, like we make sure that it is added, because for any kind of API you need to configure this HTTP client. Now after this HTTP client registration, what we did, we simply created one service, because we know that we are going to utilize the service here. Okay, so how to create this service file? You can see there are two service files. So to create this service file, you can use the command ng for Angular generate as service and the name of the service, that is user. So when you press enter on this command, it will automatically create these two files for you. One is user-service.spec.ts and another one is user-service.ts. Spec.ts is not useful, and even if you want, you can remove it for now because it is not applicable in our system. For this example, okay, we will just make use of this user.service.ts file. Okay, so we have this file. Now let's see what all things we have. So command I already explained you, like you can simply run ng for Angular generate generate, then s for service, or maybe you can write full ng generate service. Okay, like that you can write, but mostly developers prefer to go with the shortcuts. So ng g for generate, S for service, and the name of the service. So this file will be created. You will get this class empty, okay, blank. This code I have added later, so I'll explain you what it is doing basically. So from here, like you can see, provided in root, so at root level this user service can be utilized. And here I firstly added this constructor private HTTP client. So this thing we were earlier doing in the component, right? But now we are doing it in a service. So HTTP client, so we can access this HTTP client with HTTP. Then there is one method get users, which will return this .http get any, and this is my URL of the API. Okay. So now what is the benefit of this service? Because this thing we can also write in a component. Now listen, suppose we are using this API in component 1. So we can write it there, but same thing if we are using in component 2 as well. So in that case we will repeat the code, unnecessary code. Similarly, if you are using it in third component, again you need to write it. So it will create lots of repeated code, and we don't want that, right? So for that, what we will do, we will simply create one service, and this service will hold the actual logic to hit the URL, okay, the fixed part of the URL. So whenever like we want to use this API, we can simply use this service, and that service can be utilized in any of the components. So there is no need of repetition of code. Correct? So this thing is ready, and you can see as we are using HTTP client, so it is imported here. So make sure it is imported. So we are done with the service. Now the main thing is just to connect your component 1, because we will make use of the service in a component. Okay, so what we will do, we will simply connect with our application, main application. So in case you don't know how to create components, so ng for Angular, g generate, c component, and the name of the component is comp1. So when user press enter on this, it will create this comp1 component with 4 files: css, html, spec.ts, and component.ts. Now in this component1.ts, we will find the selector name. Okay, don't look at the below code. I'll explain you this later. But for now, just keep in mind the selector, and this selector we will use in app component. So let's go to app.component.ts file. Firstly, we will import this comp1 component, and then we will use import this here. Later, we will go to app.component.html file, where we will provide the required headings like Angular codes by texture myth, organizing get APIs and services, horizontal row, and one app comp. That means now the comp1 is connected with our app.component.html file. Okay, now I'll show you how we are utilizing the logic inside the component class. Comp1 component class. Okay, so this is the logic that I added, and all the things that are imported above are according to the logic. So firstly, we are implementing the ng on init, and if you don't know what is ng on init, so for now just keep in mind that ng on init is a kind of method that will automatically invoked whenever the application is loaded. Okay, but I have already created a detailed session on ng on init, so that you can refer there. You will find all the details related to it, but for time being, just keep in mind that it is a method that will be automatically invoked. Okay, so here I'm using users to store my data, then constructor private user service. Remember, here we are not using HTTP client. Prior to that, whatever logic we were trying related to get API, we were using HTTP client here in a constructor, but this time I'm using constructor private user service. You can keep any name, but I kept it user service so that you can relate that okay, this is coming from user service. Okay, then inside a method I use this .user service .get user .subscribe res for response or result. Then this .user is res, that means whatever is stored in this res will be moved to this user, and then we are good to use it in a application HTML. Okay, and the things that are imported during this process is common module. For some things that I'm going to use in HTML, user service is there, ng on init is there. Okay, so let's see the HTML part. Here I'm simply printing the data. So user list as a heading, if user dot length is greater than 0. So in case if it is greater than 0, that means it has some data. So we will iterate one user we will iterate one for loop for users, and then one by one we will print the values like user.name, user.email. Else we will simply show one message that no user found. Okay, so that's the only simplest logic that you can create. So what we basically did in this session and what we learned in this session, that instead of writing the entire API logic inside your component 1, we can store it in a service. We can make use of service, so that whenever, let's say if I want to use the same API in any other component, I can directly use it. Okay, so this piece of code can be reutilized, so that that component can also call this API. Okay, so that's the only purpose of using services, although there are so many other benefits of using services that maybe we can discuss in upcoming sessions. But for now, I think this is the thing that I would like to share with you all in this session, and you have received the required thing. So I hope this session is clear to all of you, and in the next session we will discuss few more things. So thank you for watching TechSharemit.